You're listening to The Grapevine. All right. Good afternoon, good morning, whatever time you're listening to this.
Sanbonani.
Hello. Sanbonani. And welcome to our first official episode of Through the Grapevine. Those that are familiar with this voice, those are unfamiliar with this voice, you're speaking to Sunny Lisiwe Owetuntabeni, a.k.a. Mama Action, a.k.a. Mama Kastering, a.k.a. The Black Karen. And as always, I'm never alone. I'm always with my best co-host with the most.
Sanbonani, nguzodidi zawetano. Umama kazenande, you smash me, you grab me. Former journalist, now turned media specialist. It's good to be back. It's good to be here with you after a
very long
sabbatical. I was about to say hiatus. And I'm sure those who are wondering are like, why are we only hearing their voices and not seeing their faces? But there's time for change. I think in life, everything has to evolve, and change is good. We're in 2023. We've made a few decisions, life-changing decisions that are only for the best of our brands as individuals, that are also best for our career, and also personally how we would be able to manage our time. That's why there's you not seeing our faces as you used to on that other podcast. But now we've changed, we've moved, we have grown.
On to better things, on to bigger things. We're here to secure bags.
Yes, and what's important is the name of the show now is The Grapevine. And I mean, you know, it's all about narrating our lives. It's all about our journeys. It's all about navigating through life with you as the listener. You're our people. So here we're here to exchange tools to navigate through life and to just overcome some of the challenges that we encounter.
And to better equip not only ourselves, but for the future as well. Because whatever we're doing, we're not just doing it for the now, we're doing it for the later.
True.
Because we're parents and we have children, one of the biggest things is to ensure that should anything happen, you know, in an untimely manner, there's always something that exists. There's a legacy that is created 100%. So that we ensure that, you know, that the future may be going through something similar or something different.
You can go back.
But there is a learning that is there that will help you and that will instill a little bit of value and purpose to your journey as an individual, which speaks to our content. Our content essentially is all about that. It's about educating and informing the masses. And it's not only just about the masses, but also for ourselves. Because we're 100%. Here for you. We're not here just to be two talking heads here that just spits fire bars and whatever. No, child. We're also here to learn, because I could be sharing my mgowo and Jiggy, you could be having a solution to help me. Exactly.
And I think what's also is very important is that, you know what, there's no manual for life. There's no manual for love. There's no manual for parenting. There's no manual on how to be successful. If it was, I think we would all have mastered that and sonke ngesiklokilo life in a way. But because there is no manual, we want to exchange those, you know what, weaponize us and give us ammunition on how to tackle the challenges that come our way.
Since I'm a weapon, I'd like to be an AK-47. Since we're weaponizing.
Yes, like, because as Nazo, honestly,
automatic rifle.
Like, as we're sitting here, I do know, and I want to encourage you that comment, engage with us, tell us what you think, tell us what you went through and how you overcame that situation. And we're here to give each other solutions. But most importantly, I want to say I'm bragging about this. I love to brag the fact that we are an all-women team in this podcast. We've got a female-led production company. It's 7 and 9th, and they are our sponsor. And they are so good. Mamela, they are brilliant. They've been very helpful in setting up this podcast. Like, I mamela nzabanekla pop 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 pop. They are good. They are good. I vouch for them because we are learning through them, and we're doing a lot, and so we'd like to thank them.
And I think the one thing that I like is I love the fact that we can say proudly brought to you by, proudly sponsored by 7 a production company.
It gives us that. It's nigga like cred,
Like
validation.
in fact, remember back in the days when DJ Cleo used to do this. This is a DJ Cleo production, and people would be like, yeah.
It's exactly that.
That's exactly what it does. It gives me that vibe. It takes me back
it's
to that
era.
Like
last stamps got verified.
Yeah, Eva. It's like I'm part of Twitter Blue subscription live. I can edit my tweets. Levels, live.
So, guys, elevation. It's all about that.
Very key. You gotta elevate. You know what I'm saying? You can't be stuck in the same position.
No.
You gotta sneeze in the knees to diseases.
Oh, I leave it to So today, we've been through a lot last month. Like, okay, January was a long year on its own.
Damn.
It was a year. However, it had 365 days, 31 days. And now we just came through the month of love, which is sickening for me. Because people were spending recklessly. People were just doing too much for me. I don't want to lie. Like,
I don't know what timeline you were on, but like the timelines that I generally follow, like for Valentine's Day, they were like, please don't bore me. And I was like, yes, thank you.
You know, the only surprising one was not seeing Lerato Kganyago post the extravagant Valentine's Day gift that she normally gives.
Scampor.
Because the previous year, her husband bought her a boutique hotel, which was like, wow. So everyone I know on Twitter was like, hey, he's going to buy her the heaven. He's going to buy her the country. Like, the people were ready with their passports saying he can buy us, gift her with us. But I think it all came down to me, it made me realize that, especially for first-time couples going through Valentine's, because this is a conversation I had. Couples. But it was all about, do you first celebrate Valentine's Day? And obviously I don't. Personally, I just think it's a marketing gimmick for companies to make money.
We just came out of back to school, please.
Exactly. I'm a parent. I don't have time for that. And next month, March is my birthday month. So for me, spend on my birthday. Don't spend on this damn Valentine's Day. It's a waste. But there's this awkward conversation that you have to have and I was kind of like crossing thumbs that dude doesn't celebrate Valentine's Day, because I'm thinking I don't have money for this shit, like inside, because men's gifts are expensive, and I'm thinking, what can I get him? And so when
besides
he said
socks, my friend,
it's like I'm at closer 250. So I was like, and perfume and fragrance and all those things, like the normal gifts that but you want to make it special as well. So making it special sometimes does mean spending a little bit more. And I was crossing thumbs by guy, please, celebrate it, like don't celebrate it. And luckily for me, he didn't. He said he doesn't celebrate it, but I was worried that it's an expense. So I don't know how you came with it.
So for me, I mean, I've just elevated from a talking stage. So I've upgraded from talking to in a relationship with.
Guys, and sorry, just a note, pop. Like these girls who were single last year. And now we've gone past talking stages. Like last time we never got it was always getting stuck.
Last time I was out here asking for your brother at one stage, so yeah. But I think for me, the one thing that I appreciated is that my current partner and I, we talk finances.
Yeah.
We're very open with each other. So he knows where I stand financially. He knows what my financial priorities are. I know where he stands financially and what his priorities are. And there's an alignment in that regard, because in as much as I love spoiling my partner, but I spoil within bounds. So for me, it's gotten to that point whereby we were both working, first of all, on Valentine's Day. So we're like, Sana, we're tired. And secondly, when we did see each other on the day, it's like how we generally see each other every day.
Normal.
So it wasn't like a big hoo-ha where, there was like a grand gesture and whatever else.
So every day is Valentine's Day.
Basically,
yeah.
He did the same standard things that he's been doing consistently is what he did on that day. So that's what I appreciated it. And I didn't feel pressured to spend, because one of my biggest things was I've always been in relationships around about that time where I felt this pressure to spend. But this time around, I felt the pressure to save.
I think there's a correlation in our stories and the way that we've tackled relationships. First of all, we haven't been we haven't been in serious relationships for a good time, you and I. And the way we tackled it was talking it out first, let's bring the elephant in the room. How are we spending? What is the expectation out of me and out of you, as we embark on this journey together? Talking about things like one would think Valentine's Day is a frivolous thing, but for someone who does celebrate it, I would think that they would feel offended if a guy doesn't, go all the way for it. And so they'd feel maybe less loved. For example, especially if you're in a setup where you're with a group of girls or friends in a friendship where Valentine's Day is a huge thing, you would feel some type of way if your man doesn't do anything for you, But I think it's very important to have that conversation at the start of the relationship as to what are your expectations. Valentine's Day, have that. It's not a comfortable conversation, no. I must say. Talk about your finances. What do you expect of me financially? And what can I do? It's all about, I know people hate this, but what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing? We are not on the same financial tax bracket, maybe, we've got responsibilities and different priorities. We are parents, for example, a bulk of our money goes towards the child and not even ourselves. And then again, sihlala emakhaya, where we need to give back to our homes. So our expenses and our spendings are different from someone who doesn't have that responsibility or baggage. So it's very important to talk about it and discuss it and just be frank as to this is what I can afford.
And you know what? This is what I did differently. And in my previous relationships, I can say this with my chest. I had expectations. I had expected Valentine's Day to pop. I had expected the grand gestures and whatever else without even having a regard for your finances. But this time around, I think what made it different is we had the conversation.
Yes.
We understand each other. We know, okay, this is what they're doing. This is what their short-term goals financially are and long-term goals. These are my short-term goals and this is what I want to do in the long term. And how can we complement each other and hold each other responsible to make sure that we actually reach it? And it's gotten to such a point where now, even our discussions, we're even talking about the potential of having more kids. It's gotten to that point. Like, do you want another child in the mix?
Can we afford to have another child?
Because affordability is very key. Because parenting is also a very, very tricky situation. Dude. Because you could say that I want a child. Yes, that's all fine and good. But how are we going to raise the child? That's where things get very awkward.
And how are you going to sustain it? Because I think we're at a point where in both our lives, the men we will meet or the men that we will be with are not men who, chances are they have kids. Chances are they've come out from serious relationships. There's a history, there's baggage, because we also have our own baggage, so you can't think that it's back in our 20s where you're meeting a guy who is figuring life just like you. We've figured our lives, that we are solid. And you're looking for someone who's equally solid. And therefore, there's issues like that. Like, when I have a child, how are we going to blend our families? Because chances are you have a child yourself. How do you raise your child religiously as well? Because for me, religion is big. I don't want to take my child, but because I'm probably married to that family now, I need to, do it because I have to do it. How are we gonna?
As well.
How are we gonna spend? Spending, because one would argue that Uzenanda is spoiled, and for me, she's not spoiled, but it's a certain lifestyle that I've been able to afford her. And now, when you bring in another child, there's a comparison as to this is how I raise my kids, this is how you raise your kids. And if we want to have a child together, how are we going to be raising that one child? that is from both. And remember, with blended families as well, there needs to be some, it must be equal, so your kids don't see more from, as if Uzenand is getting more than what they are getting.
And also what happens in our untimely passing, what happens then? Because I personally am not having a kid willy-nilly like I did beforehand.
100%.
I've learned my lesson. I want to get married now. And if I'm going to get married and I'm bringing a child, what happens to our assets? How do I ensure that Unsiga gets what is due to him? Because at this kind juncture, everything of mine is written under my son. Now I have to accommodate and think of. Now we have to have that awkward conversation as well, because not only must we accommodate the child or the children that we're going to make in the marriage,
but your child
or children as well. Where does that tie in the overall spectrum?
I think I've had this conversation because talks of children always come up in serious relationships because we're not looking at now. We're looking at the future, and that's how I view life. I don't live for today. I live for tomorrow, the next year, what's going to happen. And with us having kids out of wedlock, I had this thing where Uzenande, I believe, is what I said to this one person was, I need to work extra hard.
Yeah.
If I'm going to get married, I need to work extra hard before I am at a point where I'm getting married, so that Uzenande has her own property, so that when I do go into wedlock, Uzenande has an asset of her own. And whatever you and I are trying to build, we build it for those that are in our marital home. Because a lot of kids who come out of marital homes tend to victimize the one that is born out of wedlock.
Yeah.
And especially should I die first, it will be a fight as to who gets to. Uzenande could be, chased out of the marital home because she's not my dad's child, for example. And this would be Zenande's biological sisters or brothers saying this. But because life, takes its own turn, you need to know that there's greed, there's selfishness. And even no more guy may change after I die and not want anything to do with my own child. So I think it's very important for us to set up assets for our kids that are that are born out of wedlock. It's not that you don't trust your partner, but you need to ensure that your child will be okay.
And also, guys, because we're consistently reading. We've always got these lawyers that are out here tweeting and telling us things, and you're just like, but I thought they loved each other.
No.
Sometimes love,
it's not enough.
Is not enough when it comes to taking care and protecting your child's interests.
And there's greed. The thing is, there's greed. And greed is a poisonous thing. It can be that this person is in love with you and, but once someone else plants that seed in his head, you don't know what may happen.
Exactly.
And if you're not here to protect your own child, what's going to happen? Because I know, guaranteed, those born in a marital home are covered. He would protect them. But the one that's out of wedlock, what's going to happen? Who's going to protect that child?
And that child's interest.
Exactly. So create trusts for your kids, I think, is important. Create assets for your kids is very important so that it's an investment.
Yeah.
Make an investment for all your children. It's not that you're only going to be taking care of the one that's born out of wedlock, but at least that one born out of wedlock should have something to stand on. And
protected interests.
Exactly.
Because you never know what could happen. It's very easy for a lot of people, and it's such a convenient thing to always rely on the good. Because that is a comfort. It's a comfort. It's a comfort thing where you can say that, these are my kids. My kids will never. How many families
have you seen?
And you end up being called into a family meeting because the same my kids and whatever are now arguing, saying that your dad is not our dad, so therefore, sweetie, you have no right or no protected interest.
I mean, the court role is full of these cases. It's not something that we're talking about that we fantasizing about or we idealing. It's something that's realistic, that's happening. It's our reality. I mean, every second home is fighting over property. So I think it's very important for us. Don't go into relationships blindly. Have conversations about finances, and if you're planning a future or a family, have those awkward conversations about where does my child stand in all this. It's hard. I don't want to lie, because you're still in that love fest bubble, but it's something that you need to do to take care of your own.
And it's also not a sign of disrespect or a negative forecast on that relationship. You have to be realistic.
And it's building trust. I feel it builds a lot of trust, and it builds confidence in the type of person, because agayi ngoku blindly in a relationship. He knows what type of person you are. You're that fiery mom who is protective of her child, who knows what they want, who has plans. You have a future. And if that person is looking at you like, hey, this one, then that person might not be the right one for you.
And it's very vital to have these uncomfortable conversations. These uncomfortable conversations are the ones that shape your relationship.
100%.
Because the moment you're still caught up in the fluff and the clouds and the air and love is in the air and whatever else, that is when you lose sight of the essence of the relationship.
And time flies.
Because what happens is that it becomes superficial.
Yeah.
Because we are so busy fixated that on Valentine's Day I must do this. On the engagement I must do this. When we have a child, we must have this photo shoot shot by this photographer. We must do all of these things. We must be aesthetically pleasing. We must look good and whatever else. But the core is rotten.
And half the time you're sinking in debt because of all those things that you've created.
Because you're trying to be the next Kim and Kanye. That time your money is saying, sweetie, go to Mam Ruby.
And the thing is, we take for granted that time is not on our side. Mm-mm. We take for granted that you can be with someone for 10 years. A baby empty.
Okay.
There's nothing that you can say, this is what we created, or these are the pillars. You have to have pillars in your relationship. Have those principles in your relationship. If it's financial, if Nifuna for finances, you are there for finances, be clear. But Mamela, I'm here for finances. It's okay if it works for you. It's okay if it works for you. But be transparent so that you can create longevity in your relationship, so that you can create trust, and so that you are not blindsided by anything that may come. You can limit your expectations.
And I always ask people, what is the point of a talking stage if you're not talking?
And you're not tackling the real issues.
What conversations are you having? My favorite color is black. Okay, sharp.
I want to get under your kitty box.
I want to whatever, box tick. You should be having those conversations. And I will always emphasize this. I know that people will say, oh, this is boring. Oh my gosh, nah. We also want a good time and whatever else. And you just it can't consistently be a good time. It has to come to that point, which is why we're seeing a lot of broken marriages, a lot of relationships not sustaining, because no one is having these hardcore, hard-hitting conversations. Now your relationship is a trends relationship. And then you guys must trend it. That is the only basis of your relationship. Or we must discuss trends on Twitter every other day. We can't have conversations of substance and value. Because now we must talk about, did you see his Ban got this? Hey, did you see another blogger released a video? Wada. Oh, let's talk about, because everybody's talking about Real Housewives of Durban. That is the basis of the conversations and our relationship. No.
And there's no growth. There's no personal growth. For me, I always say that when I go into a relationship, I want someone who's going to enhance me so that I can enhance you. We need to build one another. It's a constant. I'm not saying become Bob the Builder. No, I'll cooperate to be this.
This is not a construction site.
No. I'm not saying that. But there needs to be depth. There needs to be substance. There needs to be clear-cut conversations. You know what? I appreciate having fights or arguments. In fact, disagreements. I love that, because I want to see, how do we get over that disagreement? If you and I go into it at loggerheads and you're my partner, I want to see how far deep can I press this button? I'm that type of person. I want to press that button and see how far. I want to take it deeper, further, so that I can know there are limits. And what is your limit? And even after that fight, let's discuss what happened. How did we overcome it? What is it that this disagreement has taught us about us, or how we handle communication in our relationships? I love that. And people always think I create fights. I don't create fights for the sake of, I want to create a fight. But I'm not backing down, because there's a lesson behind every disagreement. And sometimes we can agree to disagree. Yep. It's okay. But it's how you guys communicate. And I think throughout this whole podcast, what we've spoken about, and the clear silver lining is that we need to communicate.
I want to see how vulnerable I can be with you. because
important.
my vulnerability is my biggest, I hold that very dear.
Yeah, you do.
Never mind the fights, but how vulnerable how open can I be with you? Because if I start telling you my traumas, then I trust you enough not to use those traumas against
you.
me.
Yeah.
I trust you enough not to be a source of my trauma because I've let you know of my traumas. And that's how it should be in a relationship, because we all have our own points. Like you mentioned, yours is how far we can go. Mine is how weak I can go. We all have our different points. And that's what a relationship is all about. It's about learning from each other, those strengths and weaknesses, those ebbs and flows and all of those things, and how we can come together and align and form a unit, because that's where a lot of things are missing. It's that it's two different entities that are not forming a unit. They're forming a unit on the superficial, which is the costings and the cost implications, and that's about it. It's always a cost estimate of a relationship there.
And I love what you always say. I love to hate it, but you always say that, where are your parents? If you're expecting people to fund you and all those things, where are your parents? Where? Sana, your source of income. Where's your hustle? Why are you expecting something from me that...
I saw this video. There was this video that went viral where it was like, every Valentine's Day, and I was like, exactly. We must align in terms of costing.
Exactly.
There has to be that alignment. I will talk about wheel alignment until the wheels fall off.
Exactly.
Because it is very vital to ensure that you are coming together.
Yeah.
But I'll leave it as that. I don't want to preach.
That's what I was about to say.
I ain't trying to preach.
Maybe we're becoming too much of relationship
relationship
experts. But I think based on this conversation, I can appreciate that life has there's no tools, guys, and especially in relationships. And what I've heard about from you is vulnerability, and it's very important. It's something that if I can just shut down everything and unveil the trauma in me, the child in me, then clearly, if you can take me as that, I mean, the world is an oyster for us. And so I think through this episode, we've spoken about the importance and the values and the principles that we live by in our relationships, or what we would like to envision in relationships that we get into, especially financial attributions to that. And I think that the listener can also share in their own thoughts on it. We don't have the manual. It's not clear cut. We are not experts.
We just came in.
We just
started, ne?
And
we're fresh.
Mamela, siyafunda. It needs a relationship.
Okay. Very fresh.
It's very fresh.
Newborn.
So there's a lot that we can learn from you guys who have probably been in long-term relationships and how you overcame these frivolous conversations.
Or even people that came out of relationships. What have they learned for their next upcoming relationship on what to do?
100%. Again, this is Through the Grapevine. I'm always saying Through the Grapevine.
Because it is Through the Grapevine.
It is me, Uzoe Zotitano Mama Kazenande. You smashed me, and obviously he's grabbed me. Oh my God, that's so corny. Former journalist, now turned media specialist. And I was with
Saneliso Owejindabini, aka Umama Action, aka Umama Steering, and as Bay calls me, Umama Gansika.
And of course, Uzawana Apezansi, there will be the channels where you can access us and listen to this podcast and subscribe. And again, I want to say we are sponsored.
Proudly sponsored by
7 and 9
Proudly
Studios,
brought to you
a
by
podcast production company. They are good. We can vouch for them. And if you like this, I'm surely this is a product of some of their work.
And welcome to episode 1, the first of many episodes.
See you next week.